Hi, welcome to Sequentially Yours, Initially Mine. This is the vlog show where we talk about this week's new comics and we present you with the number ones that you are going to want to see. Alright, so we had a ton of number ones this time, one of which is not really, we'll get to that in a second, but let's start looking through these. Alright, so let's see which one. This is not the winner, obviously. One of them is going to be my favorite for the week. This is not it, but it's still very, very good, and it's Drive. For those of you who never saw the Ryan Gosling film, highly recommend the film. Actually, very well done, excellent directing, and the book feels very similar to it. It's got that same noir, the same noir feeling to it. The art is excellent. I love the heavy, heavy shadows in the coloring, and more to the point, the coloring in general gives it that same sense that the film had of being somewhat distant. This is basically just another adventure with the same character, so much so that they even go back to the pawn shop from the film, the big important one, if you've seen it. But story by Michael Benedetto. I apologize as per usual for mispronunciations. And pencils by Antonio Fuso. Inks Emilio Lecce. Honestly, if you see it on the shelf, it's worth a buy. I'm not going to say it's fantastic, but it's interesting, it's well written, worth checking out. Alright, what do we got next? RoboCopper, number 1. Alright, so if you think that this sounds a lot like RoboCop, that's because a lot of the concepts are straight out of RoboCop, and they're not even attempting to hide this. It's actually somewhat shameless in the way that they go about it. And I say shameless because it's not a retelling of RoboCop. It's a steampunk robot police officer who is paired up with a human, and it's a completely different original story, but there are so many references to RoboCop that it feels almost cynical in the way that it keeps kind of needling you, saying, hey, remember RoboCop? Remember that movie that you loved? Remember that movie that everybody loved? Yeah, this is kind of like that, except it's not. It's not like that at all, really. It's the characters themselves, with the exception of the analog of Ed 209, which is, again, a completely different character and somewhat interesting, are actually somewhat boring and cardboard. Like I said, that one Edie 209 is somewhat interesting, but everybody else, too much of it is just trying to remind you that RoboCop exists. I know that RoboCop exists. I know that steampunk is big right now. I wouldn't waste my money on it. Or, I did waste my money on it, but if I were you, I wouldn't. Alright. Zodiac Star Force. This is a Magical Girl comic. Seriously, it is. Script by Kevin Panetta. Art and lettering by Paulina Ganuchow, excuse me, again, as per usual. And color by Savannah Ganuchow. Alright, so at first I will admit I did not like this when I first started. It came off as, wow, it's a Sailor Moon parody, sort of. But as it went through, I actually started to like it more and more. The characters differentiated from each other a little bit more, and even though this takes place after the career of this particular magical girl team, the Zodiac Star Force, and, they may have to come back into things, it doesn't spend so much time giving us backstory that it fails to do its own story, but it does give us enough of an idea of how this world works and how this team works that we're not left wondering about that. Ultimately, it was fun. I think that it could have a lot of potential. I don't see it as being phenomenal to start, but I enjoyed it. And ultimately, that's really all you need with a comic, is to enjoy it. The 7% Solution. Okay, so going back to what I was saying about RoboCopper, where it feels cynical, like, oh, people are into these things, therefore I'm going to do it. That's what the 7% Solution feels like. It's a Sherlock Holmes mystery But this time Sherlock Holmes teams up with Sigmund Freud. I've just gotten so sick of Sherlock Holmes mysteries at this point, except in, certain contexts, that just another Sherlock Holmes mystery, you're going to have to give me more than just another Sherlock Holmes mystery, and I'm sorry, but Sigmund Freud is not going to cut it. Really, I'm one of many people who the only time I've found Sigmund Freud amusing or entertaining in any sort of media has been actually, either reading his caseworks, which are hilarious, let me tell you, or Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That being said, the art is nice. I really, really liked the art. It's, hold on. The writing, this was actually adapted, not written, but adapted by David Tipton and Scott Tipton. Art by Ron Joseph and colors by Jordi Escuin. The art is actually quite nice. The colors are great. It's got a sort of flow to it that I particularly enjoy. And I will grant that it is trying to tell us that, Sherlock Holmes is not the sociopath that we have come to accept him as, but rather a, fully fleshed out human being, but it does so by saying that he's faking the sociopathy, and those things that he did that we now think of as sort of quirky things are actually his humanity coming through, and no, it doesn't work. Okay. This is the one that's a number one that is not a number one, but I want to talk about anyway. Alright, New Management by Matt Kint? Matt Kint. He does the art and the story for it. This is actually... I want you to look at this. See how it says number one there? That is what got me to buy this, because I buy number ones at my comic store other than my own stuff. This is not a number one. This is, and I probably should have paid attention to this part here, the final issue of another series. But because the original series was Mind Management and this is New Management, technically it's a number one, maybe? I'm not sure how it works. Either way, for something that is the final issue of a series, this is a phenomenal number one. This is how you make a number one issue. One thing that I noticed was that the entire page was used in most cases. It's hard to see, but there are little notes in the margins there, and each page looks like it's a report. And kind of the whole book contributes to what you're reading and what you're doing and makes you part of this universe. The characters, who I don't even think we got their names for the most part, if we did, I don't remember them, are really good. I like these people despite not knowing their names. I want to know more about them. I'm going to look back at the apparently 3 years of Mind Management because of this. The art's interesting. I like the kind of watercolor style to it. Just to kind of give you you can take a look. And so we kind of get an idea of how their powers work without having to delve into it. What makes these people special? We have a clue about it, but we're not, given everything. This is all what a number one issue should do. I wish that this was the number one issue. Excuse me. So yeah, New Management, really good. I'm going to look back at Mind Management, and I may give you a plotline rundown of it. But yeah, worth reading. Alright, so what ended up winning this week, though? I'm going to go with Stringers. Alright, so Stringers is written by Mark Guggenheim and illustrated by Justin Greenwood, colors by Ryan Hill. Guggenheim, you'll probably recognize, is related to the Arrowverse, and does, a lot of the work on that. He's worked for Marvel. He's a pretty big name. In this case, this is coming out from Oni Press, actually. What a stringer is a freelance videographer who sells their stuff to the news. If you've seen the movie Nightcrawler, it's that. And Guggenheim, in his letter at the end of the book, points out that, yeah, he was a little bit behind the ball. This apparently has been in the works for about 10 years, but it took him 5 years just to start actually pushing it, and another 5 years to get it out. So, yeah, the movie Nightcrawler beat him to the punch. That being said, this is not Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is a sort of dark, cynical look at this, whereas this is a lot more fun. At first, I was a little put off by all of the text and word bubbles. I mean, look at the first page. This is a conversation. There's hardly any art here. It is all word bubbles. But you know what? I like these characters enough that I want to see them interact with one another. I want to see what they have to say because they are that interesting to me. A cute little thing that I like is that instead of doing onomatopoeia for sound effects, the sound effects are just what happened. So, for example, in this one, here, I'll bring it up. You'll notice that it's the onomatopoeia, the sound effect is a near collision. The police cruiser is peeling to avoid getting shot up. That's one of the sound effects. And the thing is that I know what that sounds like because I've seen movies and I've seen television, so I kind of understand what's going on without it having to give me a sound effect, an onomatopoeia sound effect. So it was clever. The art is really well done. The backgrounds. I love the backgrounds on this, even though a lot of them are just, one color. They give us an emotion, and I appreciate that. Kind of more than anything, though, is the characters. The characters are interesting and likable. These guys are people that I would want to follow, and I will probably continue to follow after this. And that's kind of what makes it work. Yes, there's a ring of authenticity to it that is also nice, but ultimately, what's going to bring me back here is that I like these people and I want to see what happens to them. Alright. That was this week's string of number ones that I could find. Again, I was about a half an hour late to opening at my comic store, which is going to happen on a fairly regular basis, so I might have missed one or two. But that's all the stuff that was on the shelf. I don't know what your opinion's going to be, but those were initially mine. Take care.